Another important part of agriculture, which is a discussion on food security. So accordingly, I have given a separate handout on food security as well. They are all brief, roughly around 4 or 5 pages maximum on land reform, modern land reforms only, another 4 or 5 pages on the food security. In fact, a number of things which are being discussed here you have done in geography classes also. Before I tell you anything else, let's talk about two things which are very similar here. One is food security and other is agriculture price policy. Agriculture price policy meaning thereby government having a policy on prices in agriculture, and two types of prices are most important here. Which are these prices? One is MSP and the other is CIP, the central issue price. MSP you have done a lot in geography classes, so will not go in detail of it. But just to tell you why this is linked to food security. If MSP is higher, it ensures higher production. Higher MSP ensures higher production. Here I am thinking of MSP of food grains. And higher the production of the grains, higher is the availability, which is one pillar of food security. Food security talks about better availability or higher availability of the food grains, which is ensured through the MSP policy. And what is this central issue price? Central issue price is nothing but the price at which food grains are sold by centered to the states for PDS, for the public distribution system. CIP is always very low, relatively lower as compared to market price. Lower the CIP, better will be affordability of food grains, which is second pillar of food security. So food security and agriculture price policy are actually interrelated. Then comes another crucial concept in relation to the food security, that is food subsidy. In one form of definition, one can say that food subsidy is the total subsidy which the center has to pay for food security. The total subsidy which center is paying for food security, and mathematically speaking we put it as a difference between economic cost of food grains minus CIP. Economic cost basically includes MSP plus all other costs related to transportation, storage, distribution, etc. So one thing is important here, that when MSP suppose is going up, the food subsidy is likely to be higher. Similarly, if CIP comes down, the food subsidy is likely to be higher. These things are important, as whenever you get some question related to MSP or food security or even PDS or CIP, you should be looking into that. Since MSP has already been done in detail, I here focus more on the PDS part. The CIP is similar to the PDS, and there are some separate sections which I have devoted in the handout also, which will be telling you, although a few things we did in earlier classes. Remember when we had a comparison between direct and indirect subsidy, what we are doing from here on within food security is mainly PDS. And in our earlier classes we have done some limitations of PDS, some problems of PDS already. during the comparison between direct and indirect subsidy, hope you recall, I told you that PDS is one of the common examples of indirect subsidy. Hence all the problems like the black marketing of grains, the targeting problem being there, etc. They have been discussed already, so do look into that. What else you need to do here is a kind of evolution of PDS, or you can say a kind of historical review, which has taken place at least in two timelines in particular. One is pre and post 97. So pre 97 we had universal PDS, wherein universal means the coverage was higher, more people got PDS benefits. That got converted to targeted PDS, and targeted PDS meant now the APL and BPL, above and below poverty line households, will be differentiated among. The BPL households were given grains at lower CIP, or you can say they were given more subsidies. APL were given at higher CIP. So basically for APL the subsidies were not being given, for BPL the subsidy was being given, and government tried to do that in 1997 primarily to reduce their food subsidy, thinking that less people will be getting subsidy and the overall subsidy burden would be lower. Somehow it couldn't happen. One of the reasons why it didn't happen was that many APL households withdrew. Okay, they were not getting subsidy. When they withdrew in targeted PDS, the storage cost went up, and due to that the food subsidy also went up. Food subsidy basically went up rather than decreasing. That was one of the reasons, and definitely there was another reason also which came up more from the year 2001 when along with standard PDS, Antyodaya Anna Yojana was launched. Antyodaya as in very poor, poorest of the poor, and from 2001 under the scheme the poorest of the poor were given even cheaper grains. So when this kind of a scheme was launched, the overall subsidy burden actually increased. Subsidy burden increased due to these multiple factors. And this is something which is somehow important even in the recent debate around PDS. Like since 2013, and 2013 is important here because of an act, the National Food Security Act. The National Food Security Act, which is another crucial change coming up in PDS. Why was this important? What is so unique about this NFSA? This gave a legal right to food. Food security was a welfare initiative earlier also, but under this act the legal right to food came in, and that is what made it more important. The mic is on, na? So that is basically the unique thing about the National Food Security Act, and primarily here we focus into the TPDS under this act. TPDS has changed very quickly on a few important changes which has come up after it. Like now the households are divided into two types again. But we call them priority and Antyodaya households. Second category is the same, the Antyodaya households, meaning thereby the ones who benefited from Antyodaya Anna Yojana. There is no clear definition of priority households given in the NFSA, but one can make some inference. What else? Both of them together are called eligible households under the NFSA, and overall eligible households, if the act is formally implemented, is likely to contain 67% of total population. The exact target is different for rural and urban, so in the handout you will get it, but overall it is likely to include the 67% of population, thereby resulting in higher coverage as compared to the earlier PDS. And that is one debatable issue about the PDS right now. The other debatable issue is related to CIP. The central issue price, the CIP, is very low under the current PDS, very low as in known commonly by 3 to 1 per kg kind of a formula. 3 rupees a kilogram for rice, 2 for wheat, 1 rupee a kg for coarse grains, making it another debatable aspect that should food grain be provided at that cheaper price or not. So both the aspects of debate, I have given you written part also, but talking about briefly on that, starting with higher coverage. Why this higher coverage related debate comes up in the first place? The main claim is that if we benefit so many people under the PDS, on one hand it is going to give subsidy to even less deserving people, like 67% will be containing many APL households also, definitely BPL, but also many of the APL households will be included. And the other claim is that higher coverage is likely to result in higher food subsidy. It is likely to increase the food subsidy. So this is what typically people who support lower coverage claim, that if coverage is lower, will be giving subsidy to limited number of household, food subsidy will be lower. But there are counter arguments as well. Like one counter argument is that higher coverage is only likely to increase, it may not every time increase it. Don't forget, when coverage is higher, it also leads to lower storage cost, a kind of a learning that we get from 1997 change in the PDS. And lower storage cost, forget about increasing, can actually lead to decrease in food subsidy. So overall food subsidy may increase, may decrease, depends upon the kind of interlinked impacts. One is that we are giving benefits to more people, but on the other hand lowering down the storage cost. No one can say that exactly whether food subsidy will increase or fall. Even if it increases, higher coverage is justified because at least it will lead to lower wastage of grains. A problem that you are reading in newspapers also very regularly, due to FCI, Food Corporation of India, not having enough storage infrastructure, and they keep on procuring more and more grains. If they procure more grains, cannot store it, the wastage increases. Higher coverage, as in if more people are given the cheaper grains in PDS, etc., that is likely to bring down that kind of a wastage. So from my side, we justify often the higher coverage of the NFSA. As far as the very low CIP is concerned, I agree that this will increase food subsidy. All the more we can say that confidently because we can say that so confidently also because this very low CIP is for all eligible households. It is not just for Antyodaya, it is for all eligible households. So if every household gets cheaper grain, more likelihood that the food subsidy, not more likelihood, it will increase. However, sometimes the blames like black marketing will also increase with very low CIPs made. We don't have exact idea whether it will necessarily happen or not. Even if we look into this act, NFSA had said that after 3 years CIP should be revised. So ideally that time has come. What apart from this in PDS we are going to do here is some of the reforms. And refer to handout for all this. I have given a separate section also on the PDS reforms, some 4 or 5 reforms. Majority of them are relatively new, as in majority of them have been taken up in the last decade. In fact, one of the reform which I am going to do, 1 or 2 of them, they are even more recent. Like one is called doorstep delivery. Doorstep delivery is about lowering PDS leakages when there is a movement of grains from FCI to PDS outlets. So grain can leak out at both levels, either when it is moving from FCI to PDS outlets or when it is being sold by PDS outlets to the consumers. It was found that this particular level is more vulnerable to leakages, and that is why many states went for doorstep delivery. Some of the leading states here were Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, etc. In particular, Chhattisgarh is known for its ideal doorstep delivery kind of a reform. And how exactly they managed to do that? One thing which they had gone for in doorstep delivery was better management. Better management of food grains movement, and wherever possible also the use of better technology like the computerized record entry system, etc. that they have gone through. Through the computerized record entry, they ensure that whenever the grains are leaving FCI go downs, at every level there is a computerized record entry helping out in lowering the PDS leakages. And the good thing is it is being successful also in a reasonably expected manner. Apart from the doorstep delivery, there are some other reforms also. Like better management of PDS outlets. A very interesting thing comes up in light over here, that in the states where PDS outlets have been managed by community based institutions, it has been better managed. So whichever states have gone for PDS outlets where PDS outlets have been managed by community based institutions, we have seen lower leakages. It is true for Chhattisgarh. It is true for one of the traditional success stories in PDS, Tamil Nadu. I didn't tell you earlier, in context of higher coverage also, both Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu have higher coverage. Tamil Nadu was the only state in India which always had universal public distribution system. So the state gave money from their own budget and kept the universal PDS. The other unique thing about both Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu is that they have community based institution running PDS outlets. To be specific, the cooperative societies. And interestingly, where PDS outlets are not managed by these institutions, typically run by private sector, the PDS management, the leakages, etc., have relatively been higher. So this is an important learning. One more reform in the similar line of these two has been reducing fake ration cards. States like Chhattisgarh and MP are again unique here. They have gone for reduction in the number of fake ration cards. We talked about fake ration cards in the targeting problem when I did direct indirect subsidies with you, by introducing the bar coded ration cards. With bar coding of ration card, the fake ration card has reduced, and this lesson is being learnt by a number of other states also, apart from just Chhattisgarh and MP. Interestingly, for the same purpose, center had gone for Aadhaar linked ration cards. You may have heard of it. At one point of time, there was a mandatory linking of Aadhaar with the ration cards, which is no longer there. The problem which came up due to the mandatory linking was that many households which were not having Aadhaar, or even if they had having Aadhaar, they didn't had infrastructure. We have done these things when we discussed direct subsidy challenges. Even if Aadhaar is there with a household and they don't have appropriate infrastructure access, then Aadhaar linked subsidy cannot be given. And the matter came to limelight more when there were many starvation deaths reported due to that. A number of starvation deaths brought to light the fact that many starving households didn't get the food subsidy merely because they didn't have Aadhaar, or their villages didn't have Aadhaar based infrastructure. And now this is no longer mandatory. Compared to that, bar coded ration card has been very successful. The three reforms which I have done here started with the states like Chhattisgarh and MP, but later on has been followed by other states also, like Odisha, Bihar, etc. In Odisha, Bihar, etc., we have things like doorstep delivery, bar-coded ration card, etc. And they are also reducing their leakages. So they are also going through the PDS reforms, thereby reducing the PDS leakages. In particular, Bihar performance has been even better after NFSA implementation. I was talking about National Food Security Act. So after NFSA implementation in 2014, the state was one of the first states to implement NFSA. The leakages have been coming down further. So this is all the more welcome. I hope you can see why. These reforms which we have done so far, which have been taken mostly over the last decade, have not just been implemented well, but they have been implemented well in the relatively poorer states. The states which were all the more in need of the PDS reforms. And that is one of the goals of this discussion, that PDS reforms have been taking place, have been successful in the places where they should have been all the more. Keeping this in mind, we have two more PDS reforms. One of them you may have read in newspapers a lot, although in the write-up also you will find that. The fourth one is One Nation, One Ration Card. What we call the ONORC reform. By the name itself, it is clear that under this the central government is proposing the same ration card to be used across the nation. So the same ration card can be used anywhere in the country. And how is it going to benefit? Like, this is going to be quite beneficial to the migrant workers. So many of these migrant workers have ration cards, but that is not available at the place where they have migrated. In that case, they can use it. even the families of these migrant workers, in case the entire family has not migrated, they can share the benefits of PDS. In the ideal ONORC, the families can actually share the benefits with the migrant workers. This is how the reform is likely to be beneficial. Also, it can reduce the discrimination by the PDS outlets. Many a times we have seen that the PDS outlets discriminate across the different types of households on the basis of gender or caste, etc. This is likely to be restraining in that way. And the final thing which we do here is kind of more debatable reform. Whatever we have done so far is hardly debatable, at least. It may have been implemented differently, but this one, which is DBT in PDS, the direct benefit transfers in PDS, remains more debatable. Debatable in the sense that we have seen earlier in the discussion on direct subsidy that they have a number of benefits. Benefits like relatively lower government burden as compared to an indirect subsidy, or better targeting. Fine, government burden is always lower in DBT, and that is going to happen even here. Targeting is somehow not 100% guaranteed. In order to see whether DBT is going to work or not, we had some pilot projects at places like Chandigarh, Pondicherry, even in some selected blocks of Jharkhand. In fact, the choice of Chandigarh and Pondicherry was more reasonable to understand. They have good link to the Aadhaar cards among the beneficiaries. Bank accounts are often there, which is, you know, from our earlier classes, is very crucial for the DBT, etc. Even then, these pilot projects couldn't become as successful as one had expected. What became the main problem? Well, again, partially we have done it. Remember, in the challenges of DBT, we had talked about a problem that DBT is not adjusted for inflation. So, the DBT here also was not adjusted for food inflation. And that is what most of the households complained about in the pilot project, that the direct subsidy that they are getting is not able to give them the similar amount of grains which they were getting at under the indirect PDS, and that is the major problem coming up here. In fact, in Jharkhand, more problems came in, apart from just the not being adjusted for inflation. The problems like people had to go long distances to their bank branches to confirm whether they are getting the DBT or not. Even if they got the DBT, they had to go to the customer service centers to actually collect the money. So, all in all, the overall purpose of DBT seems not to be highly satisfactorily being provided over here. Hence, debatable. So, by chance if you get a question around it, you are free to take up your viewpoint. As I told you, definitely it has reduced the burden. In fact, if one of the recent government calculation is to be believed, DBT in PDS alone has led to savings of about 19,000 crores of rupees. Although this figure needs to be verified once again, but nevertheless the figure is very significant. Better targeting is something which is more not 100% guarantee. If many households are not getting the subsidy without getting adjusted for inflation, or they have to move longer distances, targeting may not be good. Yes, if you are looking at the debate from just the subsidy viewpoint, DBT is definitely a good idea. But ideally, we should not look at this debate only from the subsidy viewpoint. It's about both how much is the subsidy and how well is the targeting of it. So I think this is enough on the PDS reform and enough also on the food security part of it, which I wanted to cover mainly here.